A story that will move you. Do you believe that power can change a person? Or does true character always find a way to reveal itself? Before diving into this impressive story, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell so you don't miss any details. And comment, where are you watching from? This story takes place in Brazil, a country known for its vibrant culture but also its profound social challenges. Set in the Jardim Angela neighborhood in Sao Paulo, which was once one of the most violent areas in the world, the narrative highlights the harsh realities of corruption, systemic inequality, and the resilience of a community that fights for justice and change. It all started in a busy Sao Paulo police station, where police officer Roberto Mendes was known for his authoritarian stance and a smile that mixed arrogance and contempt. To some, he was feared. For others, despicable. Roberto had an established reputation in the Jardim Angela neighborhood, especially for discriminatory attitudes that many of his colleagues preferred to ignore, some out of fear, others out of silent agreement. That March morning, destiny prepared a lesson that Roberto would never forget. During his rounds, his eyes fell on Maria Clara, a 12-year-old black girl in her wheelchair, selling sweets near the school. What happened next would change her life forever, and also the fate of Roberto himself. He had no idea that his actions that day would trigger a series of events that not even his badge could contain. The sun was burning on the asphalt when Roberto decided to make a demonstration of power. But he didn't know that hidden cameras were recording every moment of his cruelty. That same week, the corridors of the police station whispered about the arrival of a new police chief. Hailing from Brasilia, this mysterious police officer was famous for his fight against hate crimes and corruption. His identity remained a secret, but the mission he brought with him was about to change the game. Meanwhile, Maria Clara was hiding a secret that could tear Roberto's world apart. In the early hours of a Tuesday, a police car stopped silently in front of the police station. The new deputy had arrived. With 25 years of experience in the federal police, he brought not only his impeccable resume, but also a personal story marked by pain, overcoming, and justice. At dawn, as Roberto was preparing for another day, a confidential folder arrived on the delegate's desk. It contained photos, reports, and documents detailing a series of abuses of power in the region. Roberto Mendes' name appeared prominently, underlined in red. On the other side of the city, Maria Clara crossed the school gate in her wheelchair, without imagining that that day would mark a turning point. The sound of a police car made his heart race. But this time, something would be different, very different. Roberto Mendes, 42 years old, grew up in an upper-middle-class family in the interior of Sao Paulo. His father, a businessman known for dubious practices, always said, "Some were born to command, others to obey." Little did Roberto know that this worldview was about to be challenged, and his life completely transformed. Want to know how this story ends? Press play and get ready for a plot full of suspense, twists, and justice. After 3 unsuccessful attempts to enter the military academy, Roberto Mendes managed to secure a place in the police through political influence. Over 15 years of service, he accumulated 23 complaints of abuse of authority, all mysteriously archived. He represented the dark face of an institution that sometimes failed to protect those who needed it most. Maria Clara Santos, at just 12 years old, was already facing unimaginable challenges. He lost the use of his legs at the age of 8 in a car accident that also took his mother's life. Since then, he has lived with his grandmother, Dona Francisca, aged 67, in a simple house in Jardim Angela. Despite the adversities, Maria Clara maintains exemplary grades at school and dreams of becoming a prosecutor, inspired by her father, whom she has not seen for 4 years. To help with expenses, he sells handmade sweets prepared by his grandmother in front of the school where he studies. Meanwhile, the new delegate, Dr. Miguel Santos, 45 years old, has a past as intense as his resume. Graduated in law and specialized in human rights, he built a brilliant career in the federal police, combating hate crimes and police corruption. For years, he worked in a special task force in Brasilia, far from his daughter, who was in the care of her mother. The hard work consumed him, but upon learning of the events in Jardim Angela, he decided to return with a clear purpose: to seek justice. The Jardim Angela police station reflects the social complexities of Brazil. While some, like 35-year-old Lieutenant Helena Rodrigues, fight to maintain the integrity of the corporation, others perpetuate abuses and form protection networks for criminals in uniform. Helena, who has been observing Roberto Mendes's actions for months, silently collects evidence, waiting for the right moment to act. Dona Francisca, in turn, is not just the pillar of Maria Clara's life. She carries secrets that, if revealed, could transform the fate of several lives. In the midst of chaos and difficulties, her wisdom and resilience make her a crucial figure in this story. The connection between these characters is about to trigger a series of events that will challenge power structures and bring painful truths to light. The question remains: how far would you go to protect those you love and fight for justice? Continue following this exciting story and discover how these lives intersect in a plot full of mystery, courage, and surprising twists. Dona Francisca, a former employee of the local forum, kept documents capable of proving a series of irregularities involving corrupt police officers. Jardim Angela, once one of the most violent neighborhoods in Sao Paulo, began to breathe new life with the arrival of social projects and community initiatives. However, these transformations still faced resistance from a portion of the police who preferred to maintain the status quo of fear and oppression. Maria Clara's school, run by teacher Cecilia Almeida, became a point of resistance against prejudice and discrimination. Cecilia, concerned about the constant reports of police harassment against black and peripheral students, installed security cameras throughout the school's external area. With her courage and determination, the teacher inspired students and parents to believe in a better future. But the system of power, rooted in decades of neglect and corruption, was about to face its greatest challenge. The arrival of Dr. Miguel Santos did not just represent a change in the police hierarchy. It was the beginning of an unpredictable transformation. On the morning that would mark everyone's fate, Roberto Mendes patrolled the streets near the school with his usual air of superiority. When she saw Maria Clara selling her sweets, she decided to act in what she called social cleansing. He got out of the vehicle, knocked over the girl's basket, and, in front of other students, threw a bag of dirt collected from a stray dog on her. With a cruel tone, he shouted, "People like you belong in the trash." What Roberto didn't realize was that, this time, his actions would not go unnoticed. 3 school security cameras captured every detail of the scene. Professor Cecilia, who witnessed everything from her classroom, discreetly took photographs with her cell phone. Helena Rodrigues, inside her private car, observed the abuse while finalizing a robust dossier on Roberto's actions. Maria Clara, humiliated and covered in dirt, was rescued by her colleagues. Commotion took over the place, and the news quickly reached Dona Francisca. When the girl's grandmother arrived at school, she trembled when she recognized Roberto. He was the same police officer involved in the mysterious deaths of 3 young black men in the area, mentioned in documents she had kept for years. That afternoon, while the video of the abuse was going viral in message groups, Dr. Miguel Santos received his first official complaint as delegate of Jardim Angela. The recording and reports seemed to be just the tip of the iceberg of a system about to fall apart. When seeing the images of the abuse against Maria Clara, Dr. Miguel Santos stiffened. The outrage was visible. A few minutes later, Helena Rodriguez entered her office with a voluminous folder. There were 4 years of detailed investigations into Roberto Mendez and his group of allies. The conflict became even more serious when Roberto, upon finding out about the investigations, began to pressure witnesses to change their statements. Using his contacts, he ordered allied police officers to carry out intimidating patrols in front of Maria Clara's house and school. Professor Cecilia received anonymous threats, while Donna Francisca found her door spray-painted with hateful messages. Realizing the escalation of the situation, Dr. Miguel began a confidential operation. He called on Helena to lead a special task force and began mapping the entire network of corruption that protected Roberto. Investigations revealed that the corrupt police officer had powerful connections with local politicians and businessmen who profited from protection rackets in the neighborhood. The tension reached its peak on a rainy night. Roberto, drunk with power and the feeling of impunity, decided to visit Maria Clara's house in person. He knocked on the door, certain that he could intimidate Donna Francisca. But, to his surprise, he found the elderly woman holding a briefcase filled with incriminating documents, evidence of his past crimes. What Roberto also didn't know was that cameras installed by Dr. Miguel's task force recorded every word of his threats. The case, which until then was restricted to the streets of Jardim Angela, exploded in the media. Journalists began investigating Roberto's background, revealing a pattern of racial violence and abuse of power that spanned years. The community, previously frightened, began to demonstrate. Other cases of abuse came to light, and victims who previously feared reprisals now felt emboldened to report them. At the police station, Dr. Miguel followed the development of events. In a moment of reflection, he opened the locked drawer of his desk and took out an old photograph. In it, he appeared younger, alongside a black woman and a small girl in a wheelchair. It was Maria Clara, next to her mother, before the accident that would change their lives forever. The siege around Roberto Mendez was closing quickly. Like a cornered animal, he became even more dangerous. His allies in the corporation began to distance themselves, realizing that the tide was turning. For the first time in his career, Roberto was experiencing fear, the same fear he had imposed on so many innocent people over the years. As Maria Clara's case gained momentum, other stories began to emerge. Helena Rodriguez, amidst the investigations, discovered that her own sister had been a victim of Roberto years ago. The case was closed due to lack of evidence, leading his sister to leave the country to escape the trauma. Now, with the new allegations, she has finally found the courage to go back and testify. At school, Cecilia faced a particular battle. After the threats, some parents began to remove their children from the institution, fearing retaliation. But amid the chaos, a resistance movement emerged. Led by Donna Francisca, a group of mothers organized themselves to protect the school and students. The corruption network in Jardim Angela was on the verge of collapse. Roberto Mendez was not only facing justice but also the weight of his own conscience and the ghosts he had created. How will this story end? How far will Dr. Miguel and his task force go to expose the whole truth? And how will the Jardim Angela community transform after facing its deepest fears? As the case gained repercussion, mothers led by Donna Francisca organized voluntary surveillance shifts at the school. They documented each suspicious vehicle that passed by, recording times, license plates, and behavior. Behind the scenes of power, an important subplot began to unfold. Counselor Augusto Merel, Roberto Mendez's main political protector, mobilized his contacts to hush up the case. It was discovered that he ran an extortion scheme with local merchants, using corrupt police officers like Roberto to guarantee the payment of protection fees. Dr. Miguel, investigating deeper, found an obscure connection between the death of Roberto's ex-wife and an old, never-solved case of domestic violence. The woman had filed 3 police reports before accidentally falling down the stairs at home. The police chief who filed the case was Miguel's predecessor, now retired and living in a mansion incompatible with his salary. Donna Francisca, in addition to the documents she kept, also had Maria Clara's mother's diary. In it, the investigative journalist had detailed a network of corruption and influence peddling within the police. Before the accident that took her life, she was about to publish a major report exposing those involved. Helena, working discreetly, discovered that 3 other police officers at the station were part of Roberto's scheme. They coordinated an elaborate system of extortion, especially targeting Black and Northeastern business owners in the neighborhood. Evidence began to accumulate: videos, audios, bank records, and even witness reports. One of these witnesses was Amanda Silva, a young rookie police officer who, in secret, sought out Dr. Miguel. She had witnessed several of Roberto's criminal actions, but until then, she had been silenced by death threats. With the change in leadership at the police station, Amanda finally saw a chance to do the right thing, even if it put her life at risk. The tension reached a climax at an extraordinary meeting. Upon entering the police station, Amanda noticed the unusual silence in the corridors and the elusive looks of her colleagues. When she was called to, Dr. Miguel realized that something big was about to happen. In the room, Roberto Mendez was sitting, uncomfortable. Upon noticing Amanda's entrance, he tried to maintain his composure, but the heavy atmosphere was inescapable. Dr. Miguel, sitting behind his desk, looked directly at Roberto, and in a firm voice said, "Sit down, Roberto, or would you prefer me to call you Godfather?" The impact of the words made Roberto's face lose all color. He followed Miguel's gaze to the wall, where there was an old photo, a younger Roberto at a family barbecue, being godfather at the baptism of a girl, Maria Clara. Dr. Miguel stood up slowly, his voice full of emotion. "You didn't just destroy lives, Roberto. You destroyed my goddaughter's life." Roberto, without reacting, stared at the deputy with wide eyes as the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. The shocking revelations were far from over. The connections between the past and the present now united all the characters in this plot in an inevitable clash. Dr. Miguel knew that the time to expose Roberto and the entire corruption network was close, but he also understood that the closer it was to the end, the more dangerous his adversaries would become. "But that's not all, is it, Roberto?" Miguel continued, opening a folder on the table. "We found evidence linking you to the accident that killed my wife and left my daughter paraplegic. It wasn't a coincidence. It was revenge, because Sandra discovered his corruption schemes. The evidence was irrefutable: telephone records, bank transfers, and statements from witnesses who finally found the courage to speak. The accident that had destroyed Miguel's family was not a random tragedy, but part of a cold and calculated plan." While Miguel spoke, Roberto's cell phone rang insistently. On the other side of the line, his associates reported that they were also being arrested in a simultaneous operation coordinated by the task force. Miguel coldly continued, "You have 2 choices: collaborate and confess to all your crimes, or face the consequences alone. Your friends are already singing like birds in the Internal Affairs Department." Maria Clara, who until then had remained silent, finally spoke. "I forgive you, Godfather, but justice needs to be done." His words, filled with maturity beyond his years, echoed through the room. He then handed over to the police an external hard drive containing 5 years of detailed records of bribes and threats made by Roberto and his allies. At the police station, the atmosphere was one of change. Police officers who had previously remained silent began to report other cases of corruption. Amanda Silva, the young police officer, led a group of officers in creating an internal reporting channel with the direct support of Dr. Miguel. Helena Rodriguez was promoted to head of special investigations. His first action was to reopen all cold cases considered suspicious. Donna Francisca transformed her home into a support point for victims of police violence, using the secrets she kept to inspire other people to seek justice. The diary of Sandra, Miguel's wife, became a key piece for investigative reports that exposed police corruption on a national level. Meanwhile, Roberto, now in prison, faced contempt from the other inmates. Isolated in a single cell for his own safety, he began writing a detailed confession, revealing a network of corruption that extended beyond the police station, reaching influential politicians and businessmen. Inspired by the transformation they witnessed, the story of Maria Clara and her father became a symbol of hope and resilience. Newspaper reports and television programs highlighted how one act of discrimination had dismantled an entire network of corruption and abuse of power. 6 months after Roberto Mendes's arrest, the characters' lives changed radically. Maria Clara, now 13, created a YouTube channel where she shared her story and encouraged young people from minority groups to fight for their rights. Helena Rodriguez revolutionized the Department of Special Investigations. Under his leadership, the crime resolution rate increased by 70%. Helena's sister, who returned to the country after years of exile, coordinated a support center for victims of police violence, creating a bridge between the police and the community. Dr. Miguel, with his renewed spirit, saw his wife Sandra's legacy flourish as he continued to lead the department with integrity. Jardim Angela, previously marked by fear and corruption, began to rise again. The strengthened community came together to transform the neighborhood into an example of resistance and change. And so, what began as an act of oppression ended as a milestone of transformation, showing that even in the deepest darkness, the light of justice can shine. Donna Francisca transformed her small candy store into a cooperative that employed families affected by police violence. Os Doce d'Avó became a symbol of overcoming, generating employment and unity in the community. The brand, which started with simple recipes made at home, now supplied local markets and helped finance social projects in Jardim Angela. Helena Rodriguez, as head of the new Department of Internal Affairs, implemented a series of significant reforms. Among them, a quarterly psychological evaluation system for all police officers, seeking to prevent abuse of authority and guarantee the mental health of the corporation. Councillor Merel, after accepting a plea bargain, revealed a scheme that involved dozens of politicians and businessmen. His confessions led to the largest anti-corruption operation ever carried out in the city's history, resulting in more than 100 arrest warrants. Maria Clara, overcoming her traumas, started playing wheelchair basketball and quickly stood out in regional championships. At the same time, inspired by her mother's story, she started an investigative blog that gave voice to social injustices and shared stories of overcoming. The blog, titled Resilience in Movement, became a success, attracting readers from all over Brazil. The Jardim Angela police station, once feared by the community, became a model of community policing. Police officers from across the country visited the site to learn about the new management model, which balanced efficiency with respect for human rights. A year after his arrest, Roberto Mendes requested a special audience with Dr. Miguel. The former police officer, now wearing an orange uniform and handcuffs, looked like a shadow of the arrogant man he once was. Investigations revealed that he had suffered 3 assassination attempts in prison, all orchestrated by his former allies. fearful that he would reveal more secrets. On the day of the hearing, Maria Clara insisted on being present. Despite Miguel's concerns, she was firm in her decision, saying, "I will not allow fear or pain to define who I am." In court, Roberto began to speak. With a trembling voice, he admitted his crimes and begged forgiveness, but not just from Maria Clara or Miguel. He knew he needed to face the ghosts of his actions. "I can't undo what I did," he said, his eyes fixed on Maria Clara. "But perhaps my words can help prevent others from following the same path." Roberto's testimony led to new arrests and dismantled the last remnants of the corruption network. The task force led by Miguel and Helena became a national example, and the reforms implemented in Sao Paulo began to be adopted in other regions. Maria Clara, now a confident and inspiring young woman, continued to turn her pain into strength. In one of his most moving blog posts, he wrote, "Justice does not erase pain, but it makes room for healing, and when we heal our wounds, we become stronger." The story of Jardim Angela went from a narrative of fear to an example of hope and transformation. The neighborhood, once marked by oppression, became a symbol of resistance and rebirth, showing that even in the darkest places, the light of justice can prevail. "I need to look into his eyes one last time," said Maria Clara to her father. Dr. Miguel was reluctant, but understood that this would be a crucial moment in his daughter's healing process. Dona Francisca, carrying Sandra's diary with her, the last piece that would complete the puzzle, decided to accompany her granddaughter. Meanwhile, in prison, Counselor Mirel, desperate, tried to contact Roberto through intermediaries. He offered money, protection, and even a planned escape. All messages were intercepted, revealing the desperation of the corruption network. Dr. Miguel reviewed the evidence in his office, preparing for the testimony that would be broadcast live to a secure room with federal judges and prosecutors. The truth about Sandra's death would finally come to light. Helicopters flew over the area, ensuring maximum security during the event. Before starting, Roberto spoke with a trembling voice. "I want to look into Maria Clara's eyes." The silence in the room was palpable. Maria Clara, in her wheelchair, approached the table and replied firmly, "You not only betrayed your role as a police officer, but also the oath you took as my godfather." Roberto began his testimony, revealing how, 15 years ago, he began his path of corruption with small bribes and threats, until he built an empire that generated millions. He confessed that the accident that killed Sandra was not accidental, but premeditated, revenge against the investigation she was conducting. While Roberto detailed drug trafficking schemes, weapons sales, and systematic extortion of traders, Amanda Silva activated the maximum security protocol. Outside, the battle intensified. Bope managed to contain an attempted invasion of the police station, arresting 15 corrupt police officers. Federal police helicopters ensured that no suspect escaped. When the police station doors opened, the Secretary of Public Security was handcuffed and led away by federal agents. The simultaneous operation across the state resulted in the arrest of more than 200 corrupt police officers and 50 politicians involved. "It's over," said Dr. Miguel, looking out the window where a crowd was celebrating. "Sandra, we finally did it." Roberto, now completely broken, signed his confession. His testimony triggered the biggest cleanup ever carried out by the Sao Paulo police. Maria Clara approached him one last time and said, "I forgive you, but what you did will never be forgotten. May you live with the weight of your actions." Dr. Miguel assumed the position of General Coordinator of the police station specialized in combating police corruption, created especially after the case. His first act was to implement the Sandra Santos Protocol, a set of measures to protect whistleblowers and investigative journalists. Maria Clara, now with her YouTube channel reaching 1 million subscribers, has become a national spokesperson for the rights of people with disabilities. His lectures at schools and universities inspired young people to fight against prejudice and injustice. Crime in Jardim Angela plummeted by 80% in 6 months. Helena Rodriguez expanded the Victim Support Center to 5 new units, in partnership with Dona Francisca. The Doces da Vol project grew, becoming a network of cooperatives that employed more than 100 families affected by police violence. The success attracted international support and began to be replicated in other communities in Brazil. The story of Maria Clara and her father became a documentary shown at international festivals and was adopted as teaching material in police academies. It has become a constant reminder of the price of corruption and the importance of justice. If you've made it this far, you've lived with me every moment of this moving story. Don't forget to comment. I read until the end to show that you also believe in justice. Leave your like, share with your friends, and activate the bell so you don't miss our next impactful stories. And since you like this story of overcoming and justice, be sure to click on the suggested video that appears now.